What's up, NDL? This is Coach Sammy 33, the NDL Outliers on a Saturday. I almost said Sunday. My days are off, but a special edition since there's no game day this weekend. We're going to be revealing the latest rankings for the CFP. So, of course, I've got my pod partner here, Coach Vic. How you doing, sir?
Very exciting day here in the NDL. Very disappointing personally because of last night, but very exciting to reveal the CFP rankings here.
Okay, we'll take that. Sorry about the loss. When your team is on a bye week, you get to avoid that. You just get to enjoy watching everybody else play. So that's kind of what I'm doing for now. And then we have a special guest, Coach Drewwbacca, North Texas, a longtime current member of the AAC. How are you doing, sir?
Good, Sammy. How about yourself? Good afternoon of college football. Love talking some NDL while I'm at it. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you guys talk the football. Clearly, I don't care enough. I'm over here watching Indiana and Iowa. I actually have it on the other monitor still. We were talking about that pre-pod, so uh, silly stuff. Yeah, we have the vote was yesterday, last night. So we'll just jump right in. Make it nice and easy. We'll start from the top. Unlike Mr. Tim, for game day, I don't have the fancy graphics, so we're just going to have to go off of reading the list. I can provide the list if anyone wants to, see a picture of it, but this is what I got for now. So starting at number one, I'm sure this comes as no surprise. Texas and Coach Jiggy. Been a man on a mission this season. Obviously, Texas has looked really good from start to now. Two, Alabama. Three, Ohio State. And then change from the last one, Utah, moving up to the number four spot. So I'll let you guys jump in and share your thoughts on that one.
Go ahead, Drew.
All right. Um, yeah, so maybe surprised to some to see Oregon drop one there without having any fun at loss game or anything like that. Really what it boils down to, I think the group discussion was you got Utah sitting there now at 12-0, having completed their season, and the metrics line up quite similar. They're two very strikingly similar teams. Maybe a little bit in favor of Utah. Uh, Texas Tech, Baylor top wins. A Penn State win right now for Oregon. Still having had to play the USC and Washington games. As of the vote, I think that USC Oregon game did go down, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it
but
went
yeah,
down all right.
so the group just decided that there wasn't even a knock on Oregon really. It was just a Utah had completed their season, and then also, other people that Utah had played had completed their seasons as well, which kind of boosted their records. So Oregon still had those two games to play. We look at that as 4A, 4B, whatever you want to call it. But still has its own opportunity to go ahead and reclaim that fourth spot in the group consensus. So we felt strongly that Utah deserved it at the time of the vote, acknowledging that they're very strikingly similar teams. So we'll let them play it out and see who really deserves that spot, because obviously that's a 4 versus 5. You're talking about a first round bye versus an extra game, even though it's a home game versus the 12. Still another game. So critical to the rankings, really. So we'll make sure we get it right when it's all said and done. What do you think, Vic?
My question to you is, if everything pans out and both teams win their conference championship game, how would you, being on the committee, look at those two teams then? Like, how would you look at it? Because they'll be fighting for, I think, the number two spot possibly at that time. How would you look at both teams then, since they're quite similar now? There would they be similar then after the conference championship, or would it be a gap in between those two teams?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of that will depend on how it plays out. I mean, I think you said if Oregon goes out and wins it. I mean, if you look at that, uh, we could take that and bring that into the context of the whole rankings here. Iowa State. I know that was a discussion with the game day crew. Some people felt that they were ranked a little bit too low, even amongst the committee, not even just the NDL perception wide. But just as much as we talked about Iowa State's overall schedule hurting them with a good 9-1 record, I would say Utah beating Iowa State, Oregon beating Ohio State. I mean, I think we can all agree one of those wins is way stronger than the other. I think, from a personal standpoint, again, this isn't me speaking for everybody, but as it was posed to me, that would be, just as I discussed before, we're talking about them being similar. Feel strongly that either one could go there, but Utah earned it right now. But we just said we'll leave the door open for Oregon to go ahead and rightfully earn that back. If you go out and beat Ohio State, again, I'm not going to talk about the USC result because that wasn't part of this, but overall, if you were in that Big Ten title game and done it, oh boy, that's a pretty that's a statement win. That would definitely be held in high regard committee wide, I think.
Yeah, I can totally understand why. That's going to be one of the biggest wins any team would be able to add to their resume, from this point going forward to the end of the season. Man, I just have to bring this up. I know that we didn't really talk about this pre-pod, but the voting definitely, like, being able to lock in a top spot is going to be so important because as Big Mike and a couple others talked about this morning, there is no neutral site. We can't play on a neutral site on this game right now because that option has been locked for whatever reason. So home field advantage is huge, and especially with a lot of the teams that are up there, they have a big HFA. If you can be at home at any point in the playoff, that's a huge advantage for you.
Yeah, that's boy, that's a again, that has nothing to do with the committee's rankings, but that's a real talking point because that completely changes the dynamic of some of those games. So yeah, w- I hope this season doesn't end up with an asterisk next to it. That'd be shameful for somebody to have an asterisk next to a title because of something like that. That's a joke, fellas, man. I don't know. That's crazy. Like, because even the title game, then, right? Like, somebody, even in the title game, all the way through, somebody would have an HFA, regardless
Yeah,
of how big or
all
small that is. Boy,
all the way through. And the basic point to that is EA, get it together.
right. Well, the message boards, boys. I know. Dr. Bush put a post up there. I think somebody else did, but I made sure I did my part to go in and hammer home that we want our neutral sites back. EA, come on.
Well, I can't comment for reasons, but trust me, I have had more than my fair share of more than my fair share of voicing my displeasure for that. Trust me. We can talk about that off stream. But we'll continue down the list. We'll go to 5 to 8. So since you bring up Oregon, they drop down to number 5. You've got LSU and the reigning champ, Coach Bucknut, sitting at 6. Clemson dropping down to 7. And then you've got Notre Dame at number 8. So that 5 to 8, those would be the remaining teams. They would have home field advantage in the first round. Uh, just want to get Vic, Drew, get your thoughts on those 4 teams and how you feel about where they're slotted.
Go ahead, Vic.
Now, I feel like those places are perfectly fine for those teams. I feel like LSU is in a perfect spot, to be honest. They're not gonna, most likely not gonna, well, no, because Alabama and I think Texas finished their season. So they're not gonna be in the conference championship game. So they're kind of slotted right there at that 5 through 7 range. So depending on the results of, conference championship weekend and stuff like that. So I feel like LSU is in a perfect spot, being, number 6 right now. They obviously had a home field advantage for at least one round, and that's a hell of a home field advantage to have. You don't want to be on the other side, the 8 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds, you don't want to be there because the team that you're most likely facing, even if you do advance, the next team or the team that you're facing in the first round is going to have a hell of a home field advantage. So for LSU to have one of the top home field advantages in the game, that is a perfect spot for them.
6-2. That's about. I mean, again, you got 5 teams in front of you, but if you look at that, you got the SEC and the Big Ten, and then the Big 12. But man, they're right on that bubble. It's just not only a home playoff game, but finding themselves with a first round bye if something just absolutely crazy goes down on championship weekend. So good point, Vic. I mean, they're definitely obviously 5 is better than 6, but they're yeah. I mean, they're slotted right. Um, I would say too, the committee placed significant value on that win over Clemson. Obviously, I mean that's obviously you've got some other wins up there. Texas has beat them too, but again, there's talking about some of the strongest wins on the season. That was another big one. So, I mean, they're not going to be an easy out. Man, there's just a lot of talented teams here. I'd say. Clemson. What do you think about them, Vic? I think the committee. I know that there was a little. Well, 6 and 7 were pretty much unanimous, but we feel like 7 Clemson. That's one of our most easily rated teams. That's a perfect spot for them, in my opinion. What do you think?
I believe with the results, with them finishing up their season and the results of the championship games going a certain way, they can vault themselves up into a bye. They can perfectly easily vault themselves into number 3 or number 4, um, with ease if they have a dominant win in the ACC title game. What do you think?
Um, that's actually interesting. I haven't. That's not necessarily a full discussion that's been had yet, but I think let's see. So right now, NC State hasn't finished out their season, but best as I can tell, they're locked into that game, having beat Duke, who's the next behind them. So even if they, so yeah, they've already finished conference play. No, either way, NC State's locked in there. But they have regular season games to play. If they were to drop another one, I mean, again, it's not. But again, how does that victory look in the full context of things? That's what I'm saying. It makes it just so hard to answer because right now, I guess we making that prediction predicated on the regular season holding serve and NC State likely slotting in somewhere where they've been in the couple past rankings, which we'll get to them shortly here. But uh, if they were to go out and drop one or two, how does that game look in a ACC title game there? 35-0, maybe, but even at that, 6 teams ahead of them, LSU, I don't think, well, you're not going to see them pass LSU, right? LSU will be sitting there at probably 11-1, not even having to play in the title game. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's possible I see a path, but it would
they
be
beat
harder
Clemson.
than I. Go ahead.
And they beat Clemson. LSU did beat Clemson.
Right, exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. There's a path, but like I think you would have to see something happen to Oregon here before the regular season ended for that to even be viable. But that's just a gut reaction based on what I'm looking at here from my spreadsheet as we talk about it. But yeah, I think you're right, but I think it's a little bit going to be a little bit of a stretch for them being at where we are in the regular season. But again, I mean 7. Let's see, 5-12, 6-11, 7-10. I mean, I think Clemson's probably just fine, even at the 7th seed. But we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch it play out.
And speaking of teams, going up or down or anything like that, talk about your thought process when it came to Notre Dame. They did suffer a loss to Pitt, but
Yeah,
they did not move up or down, I believe, in the
yeah.
CFP. They kind of just stayed the same. So, what were your thought processes on Notre Dame not going up or down?
Yeah. So we did spend a little bit of time here. I think some people might be surprised. I think it's let's put it this way. I do think when we finish here talking about them, it'll be at least clear cut, and there won't be a gray area. People will either agree and accept Notre Dame at number 8, or they're going to fully disagree and say no, they don't belong there. So here's where we landed. Right? It's kind of crazy when if you have it pull up in front of you. I think it is a little bit more clear, but we're talking about Notre Dame at number 8 with wins against NC State, who's in the playoffs behind them as of the last ranking, Tennessee, who's still in our top 16 here, and USC, who was ranked right behind them last week at number 9. Then we talk about losses, Miami and Pitt. That's for Notre Dame. USC Trojans at 9. Their loss is to Notre Dame. So the head-to-head comes in big time there. Then you got NC State behind USC. They also have a head-to-head loss with Notre Dame. And they also lost to Pittsburgh, just as Notre Dame has. So, I think people reactionarily want to see a team drop when they see another loss in the column. We're up to 2 with Notre Dame. You got plenty of other one-loss teams still. Well, not plenty, I shouldn't say that, but several other one-loss teams. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's nothing against those people, but it's a little bit of a surface level reaction when you start to look at the data, you know, and can you really justify jumping somebody when USC's best win as of the ranking vote was Michigan State. NC State's best wins were Duke and Miami. Does anybody think a win over Michigan State is better than NC State, Tennessee, and USC, or Duke and Miami better than NC State, Tennessee, USC? Probably not, right? So I think, and there was healthy debate about it, but at the end of the day, I think everybody came around to realizing, yeah, you gotta leave them right there. So that's how we landed on that.
All right. Well, we'll kind of break these up a little bit more going down. We're at so you have USC at 9, since you just mentioned them, right behind Notre Dame. You have NC State at 10 and Duke at 11. I want to cut off there and let you guys talk about those three. Drew, you kind of talked about just USC and NC State already, but where does Duke factor in being behind both of them, and NC State versus Duke? How you guys? What
Yep.
are your opinions on that?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, again, much like people may be surprised to see Notre Dame sit still at number 8. I think people are probably going to be equally as surprised to see USC, NC State, and Duke all stay locked in right where they were as well. Um, you might think that there should be some movement there. It was definitely discussed. We definitely did not all agree. Uh, and I think at the end of the day, again, we have to just credit the committee that some people, well, and everybody has it, just in this particular instance, some people elected to swallow their pride on who they were standing tall with as their vote for 9, 10, 11. And at the end of the day, we just decided, look, there's still enough runway in front of us with games to be played and conference title games, how they match up, that we need those additional data points to really put these teams where they properly belong. So, um, whether it's currently right or currently wrong, again, that's a group discussion. That's not for me to arbitrate. But I think that it was a safe decision to keep it as we did and not try to overreact one way or another, knowing that hey, we have those 2 to 3 additional data points depending on how many, which team had how many games to play, to make this opinion be much more formulated. And so I don't think anybody was done an injustice by not getting to jump, because again, I don't want to marginalize it or minimize it. It's very important in terms of seeding, whether you're going to play the 5, the 6 team, the 7. It all matters. I'm not saying that in any capacity, but it goes right back to what we were just kind of discussing with Notre Dame not dropping, because of who they beat and who they lost to and how that tied into teams just ahead of them or behind them, it's the same thing. NC State gets woven into Duke, Duke into NC State because they played and NC State won that one. Uh, you know, Duke stays in there still because a team close behind them in Iowa State lost to Duke. Um, yeah, I mean it's hard. I think we're okay for now, and I think that we'll know when we watch how these last few not blocks, the last few games here play out. We'll know what the right decision is in the end, and I'm confident that we'll give everybody a proper ranked field of 12.
How do you, since we do have a result with Oregon beating USC today, how does that loss reflect on your thoughts about USC moving forward?
You have a oh wow, 49-14 no less. Okay. Um, boy, put me on the spot, will you, Vic? Let's see.
No, that's what we do. That's what we do around
Yeah.
here. That's what we do.
No. I mean, so listen, let me put it to you this way. I don't, in terms of how that will change things for Oregon, I'm not even going to go there. We've already we talked about that already, right? Like this, no doubt that that's going to help them. I'm not going to say that it won't, but whether that does anything for them moving up to the four, we'll get to that one. But in terms of USC, yeah, I mean, boy, talk about making things harder for yourself. You go out and win that one, you're right in the mix for even a 6 seed, 7 seed, a nice home playoff game. I think you're really just fighting for your life. You don't have a conference title game to go out and do well in. So uh they're at the mercy of a couple teams behind them. That's all I got to say about that one. The games will decide. The games will decide. But yeah, I mean, that's not even a result that maybe you didn't expect, right? Some people made a favored USC, but I think if you put that a game to real odds makers, they probably come up with a line not far from that to begin with. So uh, USC is what they are. Fringe playoff team, just like several other here. Somebody has to get in, several others are going to be out. We'll see who gets it, right?
We
Yeah.
will. We will see who gets it. It's still one important game in that conference to be played. That's Illinois versus Ohio State. Hopefully that gets played before the deadline there. So hopefully we'll get that result and everything will clear itself out.
Well, before we get to
Yeah, I think
that
go
topic.
ahead, Sammy. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, no. You can go right on ahead. Trust me. You're good.
Oh, yeah, just the last point. I just, again, we not trying to soapbox or anything, but we just tell people you got to play your games. Like that's part of it too. I want to sit here and speak as most properly and intelligibly about these teams as we can, but it's kind of hard to really formulate your opinion when there are important games left on the table. And so, again, it's our job. We know it's not life or death, but we want to make sure that we maintain the respect of the league, and to make sure that we give you a good ranking that isn't foolishness. We need the games played, and so it's kind of a double. Everybody has to hold up their end of the bargain. We'll do the best we can, but we need everybody to play so that we can do the best we can. But I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead, Sammy.
Honestly, I think I agree with you. I think it's a two-way street. If you guys are taking time out of your week, doing your research, sitting down, talking for an hour, 2 hours, trying to sort out rankings, the least we can do on our end, and that's not just for people that are in the mix, but also playing those people that are in the mix. We can commit an hour or 2 hours a week to get our games in. It
Yep.
shouldn't be this hard.
I do want to say one more thing before we move on because I want to give these other teams their just discussion too. So to not take away from them, just when we're talking about that Notre Dame, USC, NC State, Duke not moving at all. I don't want people to think again. That's not look. It took hour and 10ish, I think, to get our first ranking. Right, that was to go through the full discussion and get an opinion based off of, I think that was between 6, 7 to 8, 9 games people had played to that point. That took about an hour and 10. We only had an additional block and a few games that people had made up to discuss since that last time, and we still spent an hour and 5 minutes talking this week. So even though those teams didn't move, it's not that we didn't spend the time talking about it and making sure we got it right. So again, just highlighting that it wasn't like we came in and said, "Hey, what's up, everybody? Top 12, yeah, good go. All right, out of here." No, we're making sure that the discussions are had each and every step of the way, and that everybody at least agrees at a majority, right? Again, we're not saying that everybody unanimously, but we do. Six makes sure he keeps it to a majority, and so that's why it still takes that time, just like you're saying. So we are definitely putting in the effort on our end. So we promise you, if you play your games, we'll make sure you get a fair and just ranking.
Fair enough. Well, I'm gonna recap 1 to 11. I cut off here for a reason. If you're listening, you could probably guess why. So from top to bottom, you got Texas at 1, Bama at 2, Ohio State at 3, Utah 4, Oregon 5, LSU 6, Clemson 7, Notre Dame 8, USC 9, NC State 10, Duke 11. We mentioned Louisville at 12. Probably should have cut it off. Actually, no, I don't think I mentioned Louisville. So that's your top 11. Obviously it's a 12-team playoff. We know there is one representative of the G5, which is why I tried to stop it there. They're ranked 16th overall, but it is Missouri State. At this point, they would be your conference champs. Obviously, it has to play out with the conference champs of Conference USA. So that would be the final team that would be in the field. Thoughts?
Vic, go ahead.
You'll have to say the question again. I was typing in chat. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Then the last team in the field is the G5 rep. And as it stands now, that would be Missouri State. Any thoughts or opinions on that? I mean, I can go first if you would like.
Uh no, I can go ahead.
Yep.
To the date of their meeting, or to right now, basically, um, they had the best G5 over P4 win over Missouri at Missouri. They have looked the most impressive in conference, out of conference. No matter what it is, they've looked the most impressive. Their quarterback is in the top 5 of the Heisman race. He's been pretty consistent all year. They got a good tandem of running backs. Their offense is elite, questionable defense, but that is always the factor in G5 teams is questionable defense. But he knows how to work with that offense well. And so I feel like he's on par to be anybody if they're having a so-so day or the play calling isn't up to snuff for them. He can catch up and beat anybody in the playoff. So, no matter unless it's like a LSU or somebody like that has home field and you can't hot route, or anything like that. So I feel like that that is the best representative of the G5 right now. But we do have another team that could make a case, and that team is UConn. They do have a game against NC State at NC State in Raleigh. If they were to win that game, that is a top 10 road win for a G5 contender. So could they jump or knock knock one of these P4 teams out because as a independent, they would take up another spot along with the G5. So could that possibly happen? That's something that we definitely have to think about. If UConn beats NC State, that throws a monkey wrench into everything. All hell will break loose if that result happened. So that's one to really think about there is what happens to UConn if they go on the road and beat NC State.
Could be an interesting conversation. I'll save my thoughts for later on that. Drew,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
Missouri State being the G5 rep, like to me it seems like given what we have is the obvious. They're undefeated. They have a win against Missouri and the very notable disconnect game where like he was in complete control of the game and then a disconnect happened and he was hanging on for dear life afterwards, but he found a way to get the job done. Like that's the most impressive win that any non P4 school has. So I definitely don't see like it was no doubt in my mind that Missouri State would be the rep for the G5. I'm probably guessing you felt the same way.
Yeah. It, yeah. Obviously, committee wide, I think that uh, Vic's discussion point that he just brought up was actually raised within the committee. Um, Now that does complicate things a little bit, but again, we're not forward facing per se as much as we are backwards looking. And so to this point, I mean, there's no question that Missouri State has the best resume. Um, Now I will address though again, so we didn't get too deep into the weeds on that one because we spent a lot of time discussing teams already in the top 12, and I know Missouri State will end up there, but there's okay. If UConn were to go out and beat NC State, uh, the reason it complicates things, in my opinion, uh, that is a real discussion. Uh, they both have a fair claim, but the issue, right, is that we also have to remember UConn is an independent. They don't even have that G5 auto access. So now you're talking about kicking out two other teams. So it's unfortunate that it's an apples to oranges conversation, but it's oil and water. They don't mix here. So I think if you want to talk about UConn, uh, you're now talking about having to find a way to put them in over your 11 seed or your 10 seed. And again, that would have a top 10 feather in their cap. I'm not sure how you argue against an undefeated team with a top 10 win. Uh, but again, without putting any words in any other committee member's mouth, I do know that it would be a topic of discussion, and it wouldn't be one solved in 2 or 3 minutes. So, uh, yeah, there's no in our minds. And again, so listen, I'm gonna. There is no question. Let's just settle that one right between UConn and Missouri State. Uh, there is a discussion for an undefeated college football team, independent or otherwise, with a top 10 win, not being ranked in the playoff, but it would be a conversation that had to be had. Now, just to shout out Missouri State real quick, uh, here's some proof in the pudding how they're the far and away the best, right? They are third in the NDL in total points. They are sixth in passing, third in third down percentage, which is critical. Second in red zone touchdown percentage. Again, finishing your drives. You got to get 6, not 3. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they are number 1 in turnovers forced and number 1 in interceptions to go along with that. So, I mean, if you needed to find a team that had some type of recipe cooked up to go out and pull off an upset in the playoff, I mean, you got to talk about a team like Missouri State that caps off their drives with touchdowns and takes touchdowns off the board for the other side of the ball. So, yeah, I mean, there was no question in the committee's mind that Missouri State was in there at 16, or excuse me, at number 12. Even though they're 16th seed, they would be locked into the playoff as the G5 representative, I should say. Um, Now, it's interesting with UConn, right? I'm saying it would be a debate. I do not know how that would land. I won't even try to predict, but uh, we should just shout them out too. I think a part of the reason that a team like UConn and with a far less than talented roster as compared to most of the rest of college football, he is also a top 10 team in turnovers. So little things like that, right, where you don't go and dive into these things too much, but there are statistics out there to prove what makes these guys strong. And so yeah, I mean, I don't think that UConn, based on the other stats, nothing stands out offensively uh, great for them. So just to kind of wrap that one up, when you really start to get down into the metrics of things, uh, it's not. It's just not there for them. Because again, I think if we try to be sim and talk about real life, there's also the discussion that's been brought up in uproar over playoff rankings before. What is the purpose of the committee? Is it the most deserving, or is it the 12 best teams? If you're talking about most deserving at that point, I think that you could consider UConn a most deserving team with a top 10 win and an undefeated record. But if our mission, which in my opinion it is, being to create a field of the 12 best teams, within the defined parameters of automatic access from championship games, etc. I just don't see how a UConn squad, even at undefeated, uh, is top 12 most talented team. Now I'll leave it at that.
That's fair. I'll jump in for a sec here before you, Vic. I personally, and I know me and Vic will probably talk about this more on the next episode, the Outliers. I honestly feel that a win over NC State does far more harm for the Wolfpack than it does help UConn's chances of getting in.
Yeah,
That would just
absolutely.
be one of those games that would definitely probably give you guys a little bit of a headache trying to figure out where to slot people.
Yeah, I don't again just gut reaction, not speaking for anybody else, but I think that might be a dagger for NC State just off the initial glance. But beauty of it is the game has to be played, and one of those two is going to go out and win it, and that's going to be it's going to be all there is to it. They'll decide it for us, thankfully.
They will. So then those would be the 12. Well, even though, as you said, Missouri State technically is 16, but they have to be in there as the 12. So that means that there are a couple of teams that are on the outside looking in. So I'll list those in order. At the actual number 12 team in the ranking, you've got Louisville. At 13th, you've got Michigan State. 14th is Iowa State. And then Tennessee is 15th. So I know it has to get tough as you get further down. So I feel like the teams at the top, the Bamas, the Texases, the Oregons, they really make it extremely easy to put them where they are. But once you get further down, I know that those teams have to be highly discussed and highly debated. So Vic, I'll start with you first. Those would be the four teams on the outside looking in. What are your thoughts on the order? And do you see a team potentially with an opportunity or an avenue to maybe find their way in?
I would go with my Big 12 brethren. I have two sets of brethren in the NDL. That's the G5, always a brethren of the G5 and all its teams. And of course, the conference that I play in, which is the Big 12. Iowa State plays in the Big 12 as well. So I feel like they have the most opportunity or the best opportunity to move up and play themselves in if they go ahead because they have no more games scheduled. They played their season. Um, if they beat Utah in the conference championship, that would be the most impressive win of all of those teams that are outside looking in. and so they could possibly play themselves in and be like an 10th or 11th seed or something like that, and you know possibly face an LSU or somebody like that. But I feel like that team there has the best chance to play themselves in to the CFP.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah,
Drew, I can't ask you, that the second part of the question because you're on the committee, but in terms of, kind of that divide, the cutoff point, I guess kind of let us into what was important for those discussions if you could, like if you can, I understand. And
sure,
just kind of your thoughts in general on just that tier that's just outside looking in.
sure. Um, yeah, this wasn't easy because again, these things matter. Uh, when you're talking about these teams here, we got Louisville, we got Michigan State, Iowa State, and Tennessee. Well, you're only looking at one of those four in line to play in a conference title game. So, uh, as Vic already mentioned, Iowa State stands to gain the most or lose the most because the other teams are going to sit idle. I'm not sure we're going to be able to slide them out of there, but if Iowa State goes out and loses big, that's really going to damage the image of them. If they go out and win, well, the beauty is they were able to take care of it themselves, and we would applaud that. Um, In fact, that would be great, right? I think it'd be awesome to see something like that happen. It would really muddle up the rankings, but it would make a lot of talking points. And overall, I just think that's good for the NDL. That is not me rooting for Iowa State over Utah. I'm completely neutral. I'm just saying, in terms of the health of the league, I think that would be good for it. But just in terms of what we're talking about here, they're the only team that has any control over any destiny, right? And so it did matter still where like they're the only team in there that kind of has that whole, well, we can let them play out their result. But Louisville, Tennessee, Michigan State, they don't have that choice. How Louisville ended up there, again, I don't remember every discussion point, but I know for sure when we were talking about these teams that there began to be a little bit of a focus on Louisville's 9-2. Can you really keep them there? Well, there was enough thought process within the group about the rankings, right? So Louisville sits 12 in the Massey, Iowa State 24, Tennessee 26, and Michigan State 14. Massey strength of schedule, Louisville 30, Iowa State 75, Tennessee 63, Michigan State 62. Offensive power rating, Louisville outdid those teams as well. Defense, they were struggled behind those other three. That was where the other three made up ground on them. But uh, the group just decided overall that Louisville stuck. Now, there was definitely some discussion about, well, Tennessee is a very strong defensive team who played a harder schedule. Hello, we also have one of those other outstanding games to be played, right? That people have mentioned here. Florida's not a pushover. Florida's sitting there at, I believe, 8-3, and that would be a real nice win in Tennessee's cap, or it would again be that would be the dagger in their season, I think. So it's not even as if Tennessee is out of this down at 15, even, like depending on results in front of them. Again, that's I'm not predicting anything will happen either way, but just to show that there are still like people are right to debate whether we got this part wrong or right. Again, I don't know whether we got it wrong or right. It's not easy to do it. So this is how we came up with it. And I think that people felt it was fair enough in that if the results, and again, if these teams had just gone out earlier in the season and won some of these games that they didn't win, it would be a lot easier for them to breathe and feel like they're in. But they didn't. Now, well, they're at the mercy of the teams in front of them. So it's not that they can't get in, but the teams in front of them are going to have to play their way out of it more than a Louisville, Tennessee, or Michigan State can play their way in. But yeah, as Vic said, Iowa State, that's the one team that can really start to jumble the rankings and start to making everything shift another one to the right. And you guys are on that bubble, 11, 12, 10 even, NC State with an outstanding game against UConn. Some of these guys, it's probably tightening up on them a little bit, a little heavier to breathe right now, seeing if they're going to get into the field or not. But I don't know. I think it's reasonable, and I think again we'll get it right in the end. But it's going to be fun to watch these last few games that need to be played, and then the conference championship games, how those dominoes fall. We'll get there.
That's not too far to go. Season ending on Wednesday, and then conference championship week will definitely be very, very entertaining. Teams playing to move up or down in the rankings, teams that are more, set in, and then yeah, a couple of teams still an opportunity to maybe get that final win or two to help maybe push them in. We'll have to see how things play out. Should be a fun finish. Well, Drew, appreciate you taking the time to chill and chat with us. Thanks for the insight, and you are always welcome on the show.
Well, we do got one discussion point that we need to hit on before Drew leaves,
Oh,
and that is, and we talked about this pre-pod, and we had great discussion about that.
oh yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
yeah, is I feel like this is just personal to me. Being on the committee last season, I know with Drew being on the committee this season, and last, it would make things much easier for the committee if this happened. But what are you guys' thoughts on locking previous blocks once we reach a certain time threshold? So, what do I mean by that? So, for example, if we head into block three, which is weeks 5 and 6 of the season, then once that block opens, block one closes, which is weeks 1 and 2. So that gives any person out there a timeline of 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks to get their 2 or 3, two games basically, get their 2 games in, or maybe one if they have a bye week, 1 or 2 games in for that block. That way we can just keep it going and have an equal footing once it's time for the CFP to meet and to deliver out the CFP ranking. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
You've been around longer, Sammy. You should take the lead on this one, bud.
It would definitely make things a lot easier. Like, hey, I get life happens. It happens to all of us, and then there's stuff, going on, weddings, vacations, family trips. Life is busy. Just
And of course, my bad to interrupt you there. Of course, when there's a situation like that, a wedding or unfortunate funeral or some life precedenting event, then of course that is the exception. But other than that, it would automatically lock for that user. Go ahead.
I I can't remember where I saw it talked about, but I wouldn't be opposed to that for a couple of reasons. One, at the bare minimum, the commitment to the league is to play your games. Like, if you don't want to put in your stats, if you don't want to do your coach reports, like you should do those too. Like those are easy points, and it adds to the experience of the league. But at the bare minimum, your responsibility is to schedule your games and to play your games. Well, follow the rules. That probably would be up there too. But, just in terms of your time commitment, it would be to play the games. I wouldn't be opposed to that. It makes the job easier for the media. It makes the job easier for conference commissioners to do their articles, for anyone in the general media doing articles, Vic, your Heisman list, or anyone else that does other stuff. I know Andy did some stuff last season the more content you have, the more you're able to, factor in, or the more you're able to go off of when you're putting up your information. It definitely make things a lot easier. And then for the committee, just you hate to see a team that falls behind. It just makes it harder because it's like a partial resume versus a team with a bigger resume. When you know that team, with a smaller resume, it should be bigger. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't make a difference. It's incomplete based on where they should be at that point in the season. So if something like that were to happen, that'd be awesome. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other talking point there is just it's just a general respect for everybody, right? I mean, I'm not positive, but I would venture to say guys that aren't getting their games in probably aren't guys that just came in mid-season or came in last season and then now are all of a sudden deciding it's not for me. There are cases, but by and large, I think guys that aren't getting their games in are guys that played previous seasons and know what you're signing up for. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's only a couple hours a week at bare minimum. You can put in above and beyond that if you want to, but you don't have to. So if you want to be here, I don't think 2.5 to 3 hours is a big ask. So that's just a respect for all 135 other people, right? It's not even just the committee members. That's what we're talking about here, but not just the media. It's just even the guy you got to play. He's trying to get it in too. Give that guy the respect and come and play the game. I would just leave it at that. There's really nothing more to it. You already covered the rest.
Yeah, NTX has a pretty good quote in chat saying deadlines make deals. There's a reason there's a flurry of games at the end played because there's a deadline. It's true. I feel like if you
That's
have
awesome.
that date that it has to be played by here, because just like putting in stats or doing your coach report, you have a week to do it. You're going to do it within a week of the game getting played because you want credit for your points. Be the same
Right.
thing with playing the game. Having that deadline, knowing that it has to be played, 2 weeks from when the block opens, is going to be a strong encouragement for you to get that game played.
100%.
Anything to add, Vic?
I know, like I said, it gives you enough time. I feel like the example that I gave gives people enough time because if most of us are in like online dynasties, I think this point was just said, but most of us are in online dynasties as well. And those online dynasties mostly are 24-hour advances. And most people get their games in that way. So if you're able to do that, then you're able to get two games out of a 2 week sample size. Um, Out of a 2 week sample size, that you should be able to get those games in. It shouldn't, unless it's like I said, a life thing or anything like that, like a marriage or wedding, whatever like that. Then of course those exceptions are there. But if it ain't those exceptions or anything like that, then you should be able to get, take an hour and a half or 2 hours out of your 2 weeks, 2 full weeks to get two games in.
And you know what's
And
gonna
so,
add? I just want to add something
go
real
ahead.
quick, just think because it just popped in my head. Pat just moved across the country a season ago, and he played his games early so that he could make sure that his games would be played so it wouldn't affect anything in terms of I guess like you're getting your games in the block opens because you got to get settled. One, you got to make the trip. Two, you got to get settled and get all your stuff set up. Um, I believe Jason went on vacation last season, who's in Europe, and he was able to get some of his games played early as well. So I mean that is an option too. Like if you know you have a trip coming up, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I know the block is closed. This is what I have going on in private," or you have that post and extended absences, hey, would you be able to play early just so we can have this game out the way when the block opens because I won't be available. Again, just what Drew says, being respectful of one of your opponent, but also, trying to I don't know how to put it, but with the block being open, you're not going to be there. You're trying to do, something positive for the league and saying, hey, I won't be here. So instead of falling behind, I'll get it out the way early so it's not having a negative impact on anyone, whether it be my opponent or, you know, whatever, other teams that are in races, media doing whatever they're doing, poll voting, that kind of stuff. So that is an option as well. I know it doesn't get talked about a lot, but that is something that you can do.
Yeah. Proactive versus reactive, right? I mean, that's the way it is in life. People that are proactive probably see better gains than people who are reactive. Same here. If you're
Exactly.
proactive playing games, you clear your schedule out, you don't got to worry about it. If you wait till the end, now you're scrambling because you're reacting to it instead, and you're not going to play as well probably. People are not going to have as much leeway in their coach report for you because you ducked them till the last block. Like, yeah, it doesn't do yourself any favors. Just play the games when you got to play them.
Or if the other person could even play at that point, because and then now
Right.
it could be a possible complaint that, oh, this person's not ready at this time. Well, they was ready when the game was scheduled.
Right.
It's just they're not ready now because of whatever happened, in their personal life or anything like that, work, whatever. They're just not ready at this moment, but they were ready when the game was originally scheduled. And
Yeah.
so keeping a timeline or keeping a deadline date on stuff, and I feel like I said, I feel like 2 weeks is an ample amount of time. 14 days is a ample amount of time to go ahead and play two games because most of the time that's the most you're going to play. It's two games. Nobody's going to get three. So you're going to only play two games, if that, because some blocks you're going to have one game. Some blocks, if you're lucky, you have no games.
That's the best
So
block.
and so you have time within those 2 weeks to get those two games in. And everything will be open for those blogs, coaching reports, all that. I feel like all that should be open until that 2 week threshold. And then once it reaches that 2 week threshold, that block locks as we open a new block. So that'll keep everything in a good mind frame, and everybody have the same amount of games, and that way the committee don't have to battle, what about this or what about that, or that game ain't played, or this. That'll control all of that.
Yeah. I think it's definitely just at least a discussion worth, having league wide and admin at least talking. And I'm sure they do. I mean, those guys are on top of it. I'm sure that if there's a strong enough feeling amongst the group that an adjustment needs to be made, they'll find the right solution. But I think you're onto something there, Vic. It's a valid concern.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Well, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to offer, Drew. Sorry, I wasn't trying to kick you out
No,
early. I
no,
forgot
no. By
about
all
that.
means, no. I think that was good. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was fun to come and be part of the Outliers. Again, also part of the G5 Brethren. Probably reasonable chance I might be a lifelong G5 Brethren. So good to get on and talk with you guys, especially about the league wide dealings that hopefully everybody enjoys hearing us talk about. So
I
good
feel
times,
like
fellas.
I personally feel like once you leave that cursed place that is North Texas, you will do great things.
And it's funny too, though, right? Because I know when I took them a couple seasons ago, there were a couple people that were real frustrated that I got them because they were definitely targeting them too. So maybe I'll go ahead and relinquish them, and maybe somebody else wants to give them a go. But I'll land somewhere, and wherever I am, I'm gonna have a good time. So hopefully that's in the G5.
I like it. I like it. Appreciate you
Love it.
being on, sir. Don't want to hold
Alrighty,
you too
guys.
long.
Appreciate it. I'll go ahead and sign off. Y'all have a blessed rest of your weekend. Enjoy the night of college football coming up.
All right,
Same,
you too.
same to you,
Bye,
minus
bye.
Kentucky. That Kentucky game's gonna be rough. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm trying to go to sleep. I don't want to watch that game. So before we
I'm
end,
excited. I'm excited for this night slate. Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Penn State. I'm excited for it.
I will tell you that there's two other things I wanted to bring up before we end the pod. But as crazy as this is probably gonna sound, the game that probably has my interest the most is going to be San Diego State. I can't help
They're
it.
undefeated, right?
Oh no, they are definitely not.
Not in real life. They beat Cal last week. I couldn't think of the record. And by the way, I know you're watching that Peacock special there. Indiana is up on Iowa 20-13 for the sickos out there.
Yep,
Um,
I love my defense because I definitely don't get it on EA, so I have to find it in other
as as
avenues.
a as I told Drew, always bet the total points under at 38.5 for every Iowa game.
Their offense is so
But what was the other thing?
well. Just quick jump in. The loss was to Washington State. I had to look up the score. I know they got beat by 3 scores. It was 36-13. It was
So San Diego State has one loss,
after 3-1, a
3-1.
six
Look at
three
that.
win.
I I got something for you, hot off the presses
Actually,
too.
hold on a second. No, they don't play. Never mind. Wait, no, they did. Was this game today? Did I miss the game?
You probably did.
Northern Illinois 6-3. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch that. Yeah, I have problems. Yeah, it was today. They won 6-3.
Really? They was at Northern Illinois, or
Yeah,
okay, that was 11 o'clock kick then.
and they
That's what
kicked
that
a field
was.
goal to walk it off. Man, that game had to
Mm.
be so boring, and I'm gonna watch it in full, play by play. Go Aztecs.
Oh man, Hawaii and Air Force and other results G5 related. They're having a shootout 41-34 right now. A NDL related final that is hot off the presses that involves the G5. UNLV 21, Nevada 20.
Hmm. A pirate flag suffering a loss in conference play. The plot thickens.
Yes, indeed. The
The
plot
plot.
thickens.
We'll talk about that next episode for sure. The fact that this is crazy. The fact that Air Force has put up 30 plus points is yeah.
Oh yeah, they still have time left on that game, and they're driving. They put up 35. They kicked the extra point. Uh,
The craziest thing is
they
that
st-
would be the fewest points they've scored this season. They scored 49 in all three prior games. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. 30 would be the lowest that they scored. Utah State.
and shout out to I think Middle Tennessee needs to hire Weasel as a offensive coordinator because they are dreadful in real life. They lost to an FCS team earlier this year in real life, and they're getting beat by Kennesaw State right now, 21-3. So yeah.
Mm, 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 mm.
Mm-mm-mm.
All right. A short aside. We'll finish up with the NDL here. We'll make this quick.
Yes.
So I didn't want to talk about it with Drew because Drew's in the committee, and I know that they have no, they do a great job. Committee does a great job as a whole. They have a lot to talk about. They have a lot on their plate. They're always watching, and you got to update your information. So only one team is going to get a G5 spot because UConn is in that kind of weird spot. And I'll also throw Washington State into that weird spot as well because they're an independent, so they'd have to get in that large bid. They can't. Uh, they wouldn't be able to get the G5 bid. That said, let's leave Washington State and UConn out for this conversation. Both have had great seasons. No shade on either one of them, but definitely give them their props. We'll see how UConn finishes up. but I do have a question for you. Take out Missouri State. Give me the three G5 teams this season that you have been the most impressed by. Define impressed however you want.
Man, that's a question. All right. And we are taking on UConn and Washington State.
And Missouri State.
I, and Missouri State. What three teams have impressed you? Memphis has impressed me, but that wasn't I wasn't surprised by it. That's for damn sure. I'm not surprised by it at all. But Memphis has impressed me. They have almost finished their schedule. They have one more game left. They are 8-3, tough non-conference, but they are undefeated in the American. Good 7-0. Speaking of American, Tulsa with Mr. Dominic at running back, top five in the Heisman Power rankings, by the way. 10-1, 7-1. Their only loss is to Memphis. So that's
Hmm,
impressive in itself. Tulsa's only loss is to Memphis. Another team that I am impressed with is actually, I'll give you two more.
okay.
Give you a two for it. Akron at 10-1
Oh
for
no, I'm not
sure.
laughing at that. I'll have to
Uh,
explain after you're done.
okay. Akron at 10-1 for sure is quite surprising. Nadog, if he climbs up to the P4, he will do well. He is a very good coach. I have played him outside of the NDL season, and I've played him in a scrimmage before as well. He is a very good coach. And the other impressive team is Coach Brady over there at App State. Ran through the Sun Belt 8-0. I remember we had a question about who was coming out of the East, and I think we doubted App State, and he took that personal. He took that personal and has an 8-0 record in conference and will represent the East in the Sun Belt title game. So those four teams and coaches I've been impressed with so far.
Okay. And I'll double down on App State because he also started 1-3. So to finish
He did.
with 8 straight wins is impressive. I don't care who you're playing because when you're losing, you're it's a funny dynamics. I feel like when you win, you're not as worried about the things that aren't going well or the things that you don't do right. Because like, oh, we won. We did enough to win. That's all that matters. But when you lose, you question everything. Was my play calling good? Did I call the right plays in these types of situations? As a user, was I impactful? Was I maybe controlling the right person? Should I have been controlling this person on third down? You just start to get in your head about a lot of things, and to be able to break free from that and to win, and just to keep finding ways to win, that's definitely very commendable. The reason I was laughing though when you're talking is this NTX put in chat Miami, Ohio for sure impressive ability to not jump off a bridge after losing 100 close games. I can uh
Oh
I
man.
can share the feeling on losing close games. It's definitely like when you turn off the game. The most painful thing I still say, like yeah, for my recaps I do a YouTube vid, so I have to go back and watch. Like I'm aware of what happened during the game, but then I have to go back and watch the game. And some of the things that I watched definitely hurt your feelings because like, what were you thinking? That doesn't even make any sense in retrospect. Now, like looking back, like why would I do that? But in the moment, you thought it was a great idea. Drives you nuts. I'll
Oh
keep
yeah. I'm still dreading that double OT loss and seasoned up 32 to Iowa State. 1 yard short.
Hmm,
1 yard short.
painful, very painful. I will go
Very.
with some different teams though. I'll try to give some other teams some love. One is Western Michigan, Metro D. So I don't know if people remember last year he had South Carolina. He had a great run to get to the CFP, and maybe an accidental pitch after an interception might have helped him advance in the playoff, but still, to go in the SEC with all those tough teams, he played really well against a lot of good quality coaches, and then he had to step back. So kind of watching him to see how he would do this season. And he still has some games that need to be played, and there's going to be two that'll be sim because there's no coach. But right now he sits at 6-2, a new coach at Florida Atlantic as well. So he could finish out the season 10-2. That's a really nice bounce back for him. So I want to give
Yeah.
him a shout out. Also wanted to give a shout out to go look it up again. For some reason it just refreshed and went blank. Come on, please load. I hate this awkward pause. I guess it's not loading. So I know off the top of my head, the Sun Belt has, I believe, three teams that have already finished their season and a couple of teams that are at 11 games. I want to say two. So kudos to them. I know we still have a couple days, and I know there is a coach that is, there's a team that's vacant, so that could be playing a factor too. But just, as a conference trying to get those games in, love to see that. It makes it easier for us to talk about what's going on in the Sun Belt because games are actively being played. And I'm sure the conference commissioner doing players of the week and talking about the race, that helps out a bunch too. And this will be a different one because it's not necessarily the play, but it's the position. I know I've been kind of out the loop the last week, but a shout out. Actually, I can't do that. I forgot about that. Darn. I can't. I don't even want to mention it on stream now. Because I
Oh
feel bad.
no.
Yeah, we can talk about that after the fact. I don't really have another one. I guess the main thing coming out of this is, hey guys, we only have a couple days left. The season's almost over. Get your games in. Get your games in. Get your games in. That's all I got. I'll give you the last word, sir.
Well, the last word is definitely get your games in for sure. And a quick, very quick ball knower fact of the week. You know, I got to do it. As we're talking about scheduling and everything like that, this just came in my head as we were talking about that. Um, a quick ball knower fact is the last time that UCLA was relevant was back in the late 90s, 1998. They were the number two team in the country. You know what happened?
I
Do
feel
you
like
know
if
what happened?
I feel like if I asked Pat, he would give me a great answer, but I do not know.
Pat does know the answer, probably. Probably Pat does know the answer. But I know the answer too. They had to, in the rare occurrence, this relates to the NDL because of what we were just talking about scheduling and making up games and everything like that. They were number two in the country heading into the last week of the season, aka conference championship games. Back then, Pac 10 did not have a conference championship game, but they were playing on that Saturday because they had to make up a game with Miami.
Hmm.
They had to make up a game. They was supposed to play Miami, I believe the second week of the season. This is all off the top of my head. I'm not reading a thing.
I'm
So I
guessing a
believe it
hurricane.
was second or third week of the season. They were supposed to play at Miami, but a hurricane happened and they had to postpone the game to the end of the season. So here they are on championship Saturday playing for their lives and to be in the national championship game against a young Miami squad with a certain Hall of Fame running back in Edgerrin James. And he ran up and around and through them as Miami picked up the victory, I believe, in overtime and knocked UCLA from the number 2 spot. And that was the last time they were that high in the rankings. Because and they lost it because of a makeup game.
I would say it's unfortunate, but I really like I don't really don't hate UCLA. But if I had to pick a side, like as a SoCal guy, you're not allowed to sit on the fence. I mean, granted, I would pick San Diego State over all SoCal teams, but if I had to pick on the between USC and UCLA, I'd pick USC. I don't. I think one. I on my dad's side of the family, I've got a lot of cousins. Only one likes UCLA. Everyone else is USC. Other teams too, but USC. So yeah, like I don't feel bad for UCLA. Sorry.
I only like I only like USA USA. I only like UCLA because of the colors, but I would rock with USC though too. I would like if I had to like choose like what school to go to or like what school I want my kid to go to or something like that.
San
I
Diego
probably
State.
would I
San
probably
Diego
would
State.
choose SC. Well, that too, yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
Oh
But
man.
out the two of them, it'd probably be SC. But I love the colors from UCLA. They have a great color scheme.
I can't say anything bad about that. Like the Chargers, the powder blues. Like yeah, UCLA has nice unis. We'll end it there though. We'll get back to more G5 chat in the next episode and finishing out the season, and I'm sure we'll have something to do for the draft. I don't know how we'll do it because I'll be out of state, but I am already working on a plan. We'll figure something out, but we'll see you guys next episode to talk about these finishing races in the G5.